Okay, so this is just going to be an unscripted commentary to a few games that I had earlier today. As you can see, I have my team consisting of Conkeldurr, Raichu, Lapras, Togekiss, Excadrill, and Arcanine, and I'm going up against a team first off against Indeedee, Rotom Wash, Frostlass, Incineroar, Dragapult, and Sylveon. And so the first thing we notice here is that we have a really bad Rotom Wash matchup. So I'm struggling a bit to determine what my lead should even be. And I've determined in the end just to go with the standard Raichu Lapras lead, just because as long as I keep Raichu on the field, I won't need to worry about lightning attacks, electric attacks from the Rotom Wash. So I'm hoping that can help me out. And then in the back, I've got Excadrill, who I use quite a lot as a sweeper. And who else do I pick in the end? I believe I pick Arcanine in the end, just because Arcanine has a little bit of bulk. I'm pretty sure I go for Arcanine, yeah. Just because Arcanine has a little bit of bulk. It's not the best choice. Again, Rotom Wash is a really difficult matchup for this team, and I've been looking at changing some members around. Perhaps I might change Togekiss, or I might change Excadrill, or I might change Conkeldurr, I don't know. But the team right now is not ideal. Well, it's okay, but it's not ideal. So here we have Rotom Wash and the Frostlass, and I start off with Lapras and Raichu. And I know that the standard play would just be to fake out potentially the Rotom Wash, but I know that there's a good chance it's going to Dynamax here. So I'm deciding on whether I want to set the water or whether I want to take the max resonance. And I end up deciding on, what do I decide? I'm pretty sure I changed this one. I end up going for the resonance, actually. Yeah, I end up going for the resonance to set up Aurora Veil, and I decide to Volt Switch Raichu into Lapras so that I can proc my weakness policy. I have a couple of ways to proc the weakness policy, and one of them is the Volt Switch from Raichu. So it's probably not the best move, but I know that if I had a different turn one, I might have done a bit better against the Rotom, but you know, it is what it is. So we can see that he Dynamaxes his Rotom, and because Frostlass is part Ghost type, there's no point trying to fake out because it's not going to affect it. So there's no point in using Raichu to fake out into the Frostlass. So what I have done is I've tried to give Lapras as much of an offensive boost as possible, but we see that Frostlass actually goes first, which tells me that Frostlass is using a Choice Scarf, which is something that I wasn't expecting. So what it's done is it's done Icy Wind, and there we see the Volt Switch go off. The Icy Wind is not significant now, but it is significant later. Well, it's significant in general because Frostlass is a pretty fast Pokemon, and what happens is that by using Icy Wind first off, it lowers the speed of the other team, or your team rather, because this is my opponent, and so that allows its Rotom in a lot of cases to outspeed a lot of Pokemon that would otherwise be faster than it, such as Raichu. And I kind of got lucky there that Raichu didn't get affected. He didn't get hit by the Icy Wind, and that allowed me to Volt Switch into Lapras, which procs my weakness policy and switches out the Raichu for Arcanine. And I didn't really have a good switch in for this, unfortunately, because the Max Guys is coming straight into Arcanine. It's gonna kill. The problem I had in my mind was that Excadrill would suffer the same fate, and the issue with that would be his speed would get lowered on the next turn. So we get the resonance off, and it's into the Rotom. It doesn't do much damage. Could have done more damage if it was Freeze Dry, but I don't know if Freeze Dry kills. So, you know, I bring back out Raichu, and I'm thinking, you know, what can I actually do here? Because I'm already on the ropes with a really bad turn one. and it's possible that freeze dry kills the Rotom, but I don't think so, to be honest. I don't think freeze dry kills the Rotom, so there was no point not Dynamaxing Lapras. And so we have the Icy Wind come out. It doesn't do anything to Lapras, but unfortunately it lowers Raichu's speed. And so what we see here, his air balloon pops. Rotom uses Max Geyser right into the Raichu, and he just gets blown away. Now, there are other things I could have done turn one instead of just opting to Dynamax my Lapras straight away, but I was scared that the Rotom would, you know, do something else to it. So we have the Frostlass coming down to 1 HP, and it survives due to the Focus Sash. And what I've done now is I brought out the Excadrill because it's my last Pokemon out from the back. It's got the Focus Sash, but I don't want it to die. So what I do is I target the Lapras with a Max Geyser, and I target the Frostlass with a Max Geyser, and I believe I protect on the Excadrill, and that will at least allow me to survive the Dynamax. So the Rotom can hit it with Max Geyser, but my Excadrill has an item called the Focus Sash, which allows him to live with 1 HP on any one hit. So he protects from the Icy Wind coming out from the Frostlass, and Lapras speed falls again. Rotom uses Max Geyser right into the Excadrill. It's super effective. It brings him down to 1 HP, but at least he survives the turn. And Lapras is able to take out the Lapras is able to take out the Frostlass with the Max Geyser. And I can tell right now that the turn one for this was really far from ideal. There were other things I could have done, but I'm not sure if they would have allowed me to win the day in the end, to be quite honest. So we've knocked out one of his Pokemon. Unfortunately, my Excadrill is only on 1 health. Dynamax ends for both Pokemon, so my Lapras goes back to Babby form and his Rotom goes back to Babby form. So unfortunately, he has Dragapult, which is faster than my 2 Pokemon, and I realize that I'm in a pretty rough shape here. So my idea is if I can take out the Rotom and get the double protect on Excadrill, I can perhaps take out the Dragapult on the next turn, but I fail on the double protect. It's only a 30% chance, so that's, you know, that's not unfair. And the Dragon Darts comes out into Lapras. Now, the Thunderbolt coming from Rotom does a lot more damage than I had been expecting. So this Rotom must be like full special attack investment. He's got the Life Orb. I finally take him down with the Freeze Dry, but my HP is far too low. Right? It still wouldn't have made a difference, to be honest. And you see the Sylveon come out, and I say, well, there's no way I'm winning this. I quit the battle. Now, I could have played that a bit differently, but again, I'm not sure how well it would have gone. Because Rotom Wash is a really bad matchup for my team, and that's one of the reasons why I want to bring in a Pokemon such as potentially Goodra into the team. I think Excadrill has an okay matchup on the Rotom because he can take it out with 1 high horsepower, because my Excadrill is Mold Breaker, which means that I can ignore the Rotom's Levitate and hit him for super effective damage. However, it doesn't work if I don't have speed control. And so my Excadrill is faster than a max speed Rotom. However, if we have another Pokemon on the field such as Dragapult, then I can't really do much about it, right? So that's unfortunate. But you know, you can't you can't have a good matchup against every Pokemon. It's just that Rotom Wash tends to be pretty popular in the meta right now, and I do have a lot of Pokemon that are weak to him, so I do think that I need to address that, at least in some way. And I want to bring in a Goodra, but I don't know who goes out for it, which is unfortunate. It's just a matter of team balance. So we have another team here, and I look at this team and I say, okay, they've got the Mimikyu for an emergency Trick Room, but they also have Rotom Heat, they have a Togekiss, they have a Rhyperior, so they're very Lapras weak. And so I'm thinking I can use Lapras here and just, they got the Whimsicott as well, and I can use Lapras and mow down a lot of their Pokemon. I bring Raichu to support the Lapras as always, and because Raichu is probably my most consistent form of speed control through Nuzzle, so that's important too. And my opponent's also got an Espeon, which is pretty significant, as you'll see once the battle gets started. So I bring in Arcanine as my third Pokemon, and I bring in Excadrill as my last. So typically the way I play is my standard leads are Lapras and Raichu because they support each other so well. Raichu on turn 1 can fake out an opponent, and if I can get a good fake out off, then I can protect Lapras and allow it to bring up the Aurora Veil or to get a max move off turn 1. So that's why I bring that combination. There's also the speed control aspect, where having Nuzzle allows my Lapras to outspeed some Pokemon that would otherwise outspeed it, such as Tyranitar. And I also have the Surf synergy, which is my favorite part of the team, where Raichu has Surf and it actually heals Lapras up. And Raichu surfing in the rain is actually surprisingly hard hitting. So I'm concerned that their Whimsicott is going to use Protect this turn. So I'm considering faking out, but I opt not to go for it in the scenario that Whimsicott protects, because Whimsicotts are starting to take Protect now. So I go Nuzzle into Espeon so that I can get a modicum of speed control, and if I can get it paralyzed, then Espeon becomes slower than both my Excadrill and Arcanine in the back, and to me that's pretty significant. So his Espeon Dynamaxes turn 1, and I also Dynamax my Lapras. So we'll see it go to big form, the G-Max Lapras right here. And Raichu has, actually no, the Whimsicott has the highest speed on the field, but he can't do anything to Raichu to one-hit it. So Raichu will always get an attack off. So that's pretty significant. And as we see here, the Whimsicott does protect, so I don't waste my fake out. I realize that there's a good chance of that, so I Nuzzle into the Espeon. So that was a good read by me. So Espeon uses Max Psychic to set the terrain, and it just nukes Raichu. There's no way Raichu's surviving that. Raichu's a very frail Pokemon, so it only gets one attack off, which is unfortunate because I would like Raichu to stay in the field longer. But he goes down, and Lapras uses G-Max Resonance onto the Whimsicott. Now, Whimsicott got the Protect up, so obviously it doesn't kill, but it sets up the Aurora Veil, and I'm thinking that no one on my opponent's side has Brick Break except for potentially Rhyperior, but a non-Dynamaxed Rhyperior is not going to be too much of a threat. So we have I bring out Arcanine here, and my intent is, or my thinking is, that I can at least get off one Snarl onto the Espeon, reducing its special attack. And even if Espeon hits me with a Max Psychic, the fact that I have Aurora Veil up probably means that I live a Max Psychic. So that's my intent there. And so we see I go for Snarl. I'm concerned about like you know, Whimsicott doing something. But in the end, I go for Snarl, and Lapras takes out the Whimsicott with a max ice. So Whimsicott uses Fling here, and then he hits the Espeon with a Salac Berry. And so Espeon consumes that Salac Berry, which raises his speed, and then procs a weakness policy, which doubles his special attack. That is such cool tech. You know, I was in awe, but Arcanine does go first, just because he's of a higher speed than Espeon even after the boost, so he gets the Snarl off. But Espeon is still at +1 special attack in Psychic Terrain. So he takes out Arcanine in one shot, which is unfortunate, but that weakness policy proc really did a number on him. If it wasn't for that, Arcanine definitely survives. So I take out Whimsicott, so we trade. We trade Arcanine for Whimsicott, and he's currently up 2-1. But my Lapras is fully healthy, and his Espeon has a bit of chip damage. So I bring out my Excadrill, because that's the last Pokemon I have. And I'm under the impression that he has something like a Rotom Heat or like a Rhyperior in the back, because he doesn't have many Pokemon that are good against Lapras directly. So I bring out my Excadrill. Mold Breaker breaks the mold. And I say, okay, I take out Rhyperior. And what do I end up doing? I think I end up just protecting. Because the Dynamax is going to end after one more turn. So if I can preserve Excadrill, then he is my key to winning this fight. Because I don't think he has anything else that's actually faster than Excadrill at the moment, because Espeon is paralyzed. Even if Espeon has the Select Berry boost, that's still -1 speed, which makes him slower than Excadrill. And we find here that the Rhyperior actually protects too, which is really fortuitous for me. Espeon uses Mindstorm onto the Lapras, which is a fair play because he really needs to take the Lapras out, because Lapras has a good matchup, has a favorable matchup against just about everything else in his party. So that does huge damage to Rhyperior. I get lucky with a crit. Now, I don't think the crit actually matters. But I still get lucky with the crit. And Espeon turns to Babby form, as does Lapras. So my thinking here is just to hit the Rhyperior with Freeze Dry, because he's not going to survive that. And then I look and I say, okay, so who's in the back? What could possibly come in? And two Pokemon I hit super effective by Freeze Dry, and it's got 100% accuracy, so I say, okay, I'll do that. And I use Rock Slide on the Excadrill, because Excadrill goes first, and I am basically just hunting for for flinches rather. I was gonna say crits, I was hunting for flinches. And the idea is that if I can flinch the Espeon especially, then I'd be in a good spot, because the Espeon has to overcome paralysis and flinch chance. So even if here he goes for the double protect and he doesn't get it. So even if Espeon overcomes paralysis, he also has to overcome flinch, which he does actually. So he psychics into the Lapras because he knows Lapras is a big threat, and he nearly takes it down, but it's not enough. Freeze Dry goes out into the Rhyperior, kills it dead, and my Excadrill got off unharmed, which is actually very important, because Excadrill is the most important Pokemon in my team at the moment. I'm actually not too fussed about Lapras, so what do? I think I just Freeze Dry on Mimikyu to try and break the disguise. And then I Iron Head into the Espeon because I want to KO it, or I want to get the flinch if it doesn't KO. It's really important I take Espeon off the field, because Espeon is still +1 special attack, right? And even though it's paralyzed, it could do a lot of damage. So it's absolutely necessary to take it out of the equation. So Excadrill goes first, and I note that this is very important because he goes before Mimikyu, right? So Mimikyu uses Phantom Force, and Mimikyu vanishes. So we know based on this that 1, Excadrill is faster, and 2, Mimikyu is slower because he's the designated Trick Room setter for this team. So when this team wants to use Torkoal or something, then, you know, it happens. So I just double protect here because I actually forget that Phantom Force goes through protect. But it doesn't really matter because Excadrill goes first anyway, so he wouldn't be able to hit Mimikyu. Lapras uses protect. That wasn't necessary to use protect. It was actually more ideal to use freeze dry in the event that Mimikyu targets Excadrill, but he doesn't. He targets a Lapras. Lapras dies. So even though I made the wrong call, it doesn't really hurt me because here I can just go for a safe Iron Head into the Mimikyu. And the reason that this is super safe is because we've established that I'm faster than that Mimikyu, and Excadrill has Mold Breaker. So I can actually bypass the disguise ability that Mimikyu has, and I can just one-hit KO it. So it's dead. It's absolutely dead. And I win the battle there. So even though part of me wants to rejig, a lot of the composition because of weak matchups like Rotom Wash and the like, having a Pokemon like Excadrill in the back to act as a late game sweeper has really been paying off dividends as well. There are times where if my leads are bad, if my turn 1 and turn 2 is really bad, I often give away Excadrill for free. But if it's 2-on-2 or 1-on-1, Excadrill happens to be a really good Pokemon with a pretty high success rate. So I'm pretty happy with how it's been performing as a whole, but there are probably aspects of the team that could be improved. So we lose 1 and we win 1, so we're basically back where we started. We're currently ranked 5,514, and we're currently looking for an opposing trainer. I don't remember it taking this long when I was doing it. So opposing trainer has been found, and we are facing someone who is 1,540th in the world. And instantly I can see a few memes here. So we have Icy Wind memes, potentially Pledge memes with Venusaur and Inteleon, as well as Surf on the Dragapult and the Colossal with Steam Engine and Weakness Policy. And so I'm considering what leads and what Pokemon I should bring. And I look at Venusaur, I look at Ferrothorn especially, and I say, okay, I'll bring Arcanine. I know he's weak to Colossal, I know he's weak to Inteleon, but Ferrothorn and Venusaur are really weak to Arcanine. Plus, I'm afraid of Sleep Powder shenanigans from Venusaur, so Arcanine with Safeguard is absolutely pivotal there. And so we get Dragapult and Colossal, and I have Togekiss and Lapras, because my assumption is that the Dragapult, or the normal strat for this team, is for the Dragapult to surf, because he goes first, he can't be fake outed, so it's really difficult to stop him from just freely surfing, and then which boosts the Colossal's speed and procs his weakness policy, which allows him to max rock into the Lapras or max flare to set up the weather. That's the usual strat behind this team. So I brought out Togekiss to use Follow Me in order to redirect any attacks coming into the Lapras, but I'm actually afraid because I've lost in a previous battle before where the Dragapult Dynamaxed in this scenario. So I take Togekiss, I use Follow Me, so he uses Surf, and he does a lot of damage to the Colossal. So he procs the Steam Engine, which makes Colossal super fast, and it boosts his attack. And he uses Explosion, so I was already surprised that he didn't Dynamax or G-Max, but he uses Explosion, probably because he's afraid of the Follow Me and doesn't want to give away his Colossal cheaply. So what he's done is he's just nuked the board, taken off half of Lapras's health, destroyed the Togekiss, while the Dragapult is unharmed. Now, this is actually really good for me, because I used Max Resonance into the Dragapult instead of Max Geyser into the Colossal, because I was actually afraid that Dragapult would be the one who Dynamaxes here. That wasn't the case in the end. The Colossal exploded, but that really went well for me. So I bring out Arcanine, because I say, okay, he's mostly got physical attackers in the back. And he brings out Venusaur, which is a good matchup for me. So Arcanine comes out, and he sends out Ferrothorn, and I'm really happy with this matchup. I'm extremely happy with this matchup. So we have Arcanine, who's really good against both of these Pokemon. So I say, okay, what do I think is going to happen here? What's going to happen here? And I'm debating on whether I want to burn up or I want to safeguard. And I say, okay, I think the Venusaur, because I think the Venusaur is going to use Sleep Powder. So I want to get it off the field immediately. So he protects on his Ferrothorn, and that allows my Arcanine to get Safeguard up. And what does he do? He uses Sleep Powder. And I'm protected by Safeguard, which allows my Lapras to use Max Ice into Venusaur and just one hit KOs him. So Venusaur didn't have the Focus Sash, and I'm basically in an unassailable position here. So I've lost Togekiss, but my Lapras still has one more turn of Dynamax, and I have an Arcanine up against the Ferrothorn, and Burn Up with just one hit, and the battle is cancelled. I'm fairly certain Burn Up from Arcanine would also one hit Dynamax Ferrothorn. So I was in a very commanding position there. Unfortunately, he protected on that Ferrothorn instead of, Dynamaxing it and maybe giving himself a chance, but, that's it.